In the quiet town of Beaufort, where white picket fences bordered perfectly manicured lawns and the scent of freshly mowed grass wafted through the air, the Miller family lived a seemingly idyllic life. Joe Miller, a middle-aged executive with a penchant for spreadsheets and corporate jargon, resided in a cosy 2-story house at the end of Birchwood Lane. His wife, Emma, was a warm-hearted woman with a flair for gardening and a love for baking. The couple was blessed with a spirited 6-year-old daughter named Casey, whose boundless energy and imagination filled the Miller household with laughter and joy. Casey, with her golden curls and infectious smile, was the apple of her father's eye. Joe, deeply committed to providing a comfortable life for his family, often found himself caught in the deliberate balance between work and home. As a regional manager for a prominent technology company, Joe's job demanded frequent business trips. His latest assignment, a crucial presentation in the bustling city of Metropolis, loomed on the horizon. The project carried the weight of potential promotion, and Joe, driven by ambition and a desire to secure a better future for Casey, reluctantly prepared for his departure. Metropolis, a city that never slept, contrasted sharply with the tranquillity of Beaufort. Skyscrapers pierced the sky, and the hum of urban life created a constant backdrop. Joe, however, found solace in the familiarity of his suburban retreats and the promise of returning home to his family after a few days of corporate hustle. A day before Joe's scheduled trip, Emma busied herself with preparations. Casey, a bundle of excitement and curiosity, couldn't contain her enthusiasm as she bounced around the living room. "Dad, promise you'll bring me something cool from the big city!" Casey exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Joe chuckled, ruffling her hair. "Of course, sweetheart. Anything specific in mind?" "A superhero action figure! Metropolis is where all the superheroes hang out, right?" Casey's imagination soared, envisioning a city filled with caped crusaders and towering villains. As the evening sun cast a warm glow over Beaufort, the Millers gathered around the dinner table for a final family meal before Joe's departure. The savoury aroma of Emma's famous meatloaf filled the air, creating a sense of comfort and togetherness. Over dinner, the family engaged in light-hearted banter, discussing Casey's latest adventures at school and Joe's upcoming presentation. However, beneath the veneer of normalcy, a subtle tension lingered as the impending separation loomed. After dinner, as Casey retreated to her room to prepare for bed, Joe and Emma found a quiet moment in the dimly lit kitchen. "I'll miss you," Emma admitted, her eyes reflecting both love and concern. "I'll miss you too," Joe replied, pulling her into a reassuring embrace. "I'll promise I'll make it up to Casey when I'm back. Maybe a weekend trip somewhere fun." Emma sighed, giving him a knowing look. "Just don't forget to check in regularly, and keep an eye on Casey. She's been complaining about the babysitter, you know." The mention of the babysitter brought a furrow to Joe's brow. "Complaining about Aunt Sally? What's going on?" Emma hesitated before revealing. "She says Aunt Sally is always on her phone and doesn't play with her. You know how imaginative Casey is. She craves attention." Joe frowned, concern etching lines on his forehead. "I had no idea. Oh, maybe I should talk to Sally before I leave. Make sure everything's okay." And so the stage was set for Joe's departure. A hint of unease lingered in the Miller household. Unnoticed by the oblivious Casey, who dreamed of Metropolis and superhero adventures, while her father prepared for a journey that would prove more significant than he could ever have anticipated. The morning sun cast a golden hue over Beaufort as the Miller family prepared for another day. Casey, her eyes still filled with dreams of superheroes and Metropolis, eagerly devoured her cereal at the kitchen table. Joe, clad in a crisp suit, sipped his coffee while stealing glances at the newspaper headlines. Emma, the heart and soul of the Miller household, moved about the kitchen with practised efficiency. As she buttered Casey's toast and poured juice into a colourful cup, she glanced at her husband with a soft smile. "Are you sure you've packed everything?" she teased, a twinkle in her eye. Joe chuckled, pretending to double-check his briefcase. I think so. Laptop, presentation notes, superhero action figure for Casey. Got it all. Casey's eyes widened with excitement. Dad! Which superhero did you get? Joe winked at her. That's a secret. You'll find out when I get back. As Joe knelt to tie his daughter's shoelaces, he couldn't shake a subtle feeling of concern. Casey had recently complained about the babysitter, Aunt Sally, who had been helping out while Emma attended to her work commitments. Dad, I don't like Aunt Sally. She's weird, Casey had whispered during a bedtime conversation the previous night. The words lingered in Joe's mind, sparking a father's intuition. Concern etched lines on his forehead as he thought about his impending trip. Casey's unease weighed on him, and he wanted to ensure her well-being in his absence. Without revealing his growing suspicion, Joe discreetly checked the corners of the living room, making sure everything was in order. His eyes lingered on a small inconspicuous object on the bookshelf. A digital clock that doubled as a nanny cam. The hidden camera and unassuming guardian in the room held the promise of surveillance, a silent watcher in the background. Joe's decision to install it was fueled by a father's concern, an instinct that sought to protect his daughter even when miles away. Casey nodded, her eyes meeting her father's with a mixture of innocence and trust. I will, Dad, but can you come back soon? I don't like it when you're not here. A twinge of guilt tugged at Joe's heart, but he masked it with a reassuring smile. I'll be back before you know it. And remember, Mum and Aunt Sally are here to take care of you. The doorbell chimed, signalling the arrival of Aunt Sally. A stout, middle-aged woman with warm eyes and a comforting smile. The Millers had been a pillar of support for her since Sally's husband. Casey's uncle had succumbed to a sudden illness years ago, leaving her to navigate the challenges of single parenthood. Hey there, kiddo, Sally greeted Casey, tussling her hair affectionately. Ready for another day of adventures? Casey beamed. Always, Aunt Sally. Dad's going to bring me a superhero action figure from Metropolis. Sally chuckled, exchanging a knowing look with Emma. Well, that sounds like a mission for a superhero like your dad. Speaking of which, how are you holding up, Joe? Ready for the big presentation? Joe sighed, his shoulders sagging slightly. As ready as I'll ever be, Sally. I just wish I didn't have to leave Emma and Casey alone for a few days, especially since Emma has been unwell for months now. Emma stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. We'll be fine, Joe. It's only a few days, and Aunt Sally's here to help. Casey and I will keep each other company, won't we, sweetheart? Casey nodded enthusiastically, determined to be the source of comfort for her mother. Yes, Mum, we'll have a great time. Aunt Sally promised to tell me stories about Dad when he was my age. Sally chuckled. Oh, I've got plenty of embarrassing stories about your dad, but let's save those for later, shall we? Right now, Joe, you need to catch that flight. As the family shared a final round of hugs and kisses, Casey clung to her father, a hint of reluctance in her eyes. Come back soon, okay, Dad? Don't forget my superhero. Joe pressed a kiss to her forehead. I promise, sweetheart, I'll be back before you know it. Take care of Mum and Aunt Sally for me. With a lingering look, Joe bid his family farewell and headed towards the awaiting taxi. The engine hummed as it pulled away from the curb, leaving the remaining trio to face the day ahead. As the door closed behind him, Sally turned to Casey with a warm smile. Well, kiddo, what should we do today? Any special plans? Casey's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Can we bake cookies, Aunt Sally? Dad loves the chocolate chip ones. Sally chuckled. Cookies it is, then. First, let's tidy up a bit. A clean kitchen is a happy kitchen. While Sally and Casey set to work on the kitchen, as sick Emma retreated to the living room, her thoughts lingering on Joe's departure. Sally joined her after a while, a thoughtful expression on her face. How's Casey handling it? Sally asked, concern lining her features. Emma sighed, sinking into the couch. She's putting on a brave front, but I can tell she's going to miss her dad. She's been complaining about you, Sally. Says you're always on your phone and not playing with her. Sally's eyes softened and she took a seat next to Emma. Oh, I didn't realize it was bothering her that much. I'll make sure to spend more quality time with her, but... You know, it's not easy being a single parent. Sometimes I just need a moment to myself. Emma nodded in understanding. I get that, Sally. We truly appreciate everything you do for us. I just want to make sure Casey feels loved and supported while Joe is away. Sally reached for Emma's hand, offering a reassuring squeeze. I'll talk to Casey. We'll find a balance, and I'll make sure she knows how much I love her. As the day unfolded, the trio engaged in a delightful mix of baking, storytelling, and playtime. Casey's laughter echoed through the house, temporarily dispelling the shadow of Joe's absence. Unbeknownst to them, however, deeper shadows from Sally's past lingered, waiting to resurface as the day unfolded. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the Miller household. Casey, her fingers coated in flour from the baking adventure, giggled as she plopped a dollop of cookie dough onto the tray. The aroma of melting chocolate filled the air, creating a cozy atmosphere in the kitchen. Aunt Sally donned an apron that bore the scars of countless culinary escapades and supervised Casey's culinary endeavours with a patient smile. Ah, Casey, you're a natural baker. Your dad is going to love these cookies. Casey beamed with pride.
I want to make sure he has the best cookies when he comes back. Maybe he'll forget about the super and just eat these all day.
Sally chuckled. He'll be so happy to see you being taking care of Mum and me. Speaking of which, how are you feeling about Dad being away? Casey's enthusiasm dimmed for a moment and she shrugged, avoiding eye contact.
I'm okay, Aunt Sally. I just miss him, that's all.
Sally crouched down to Casey's eye level, her warm eyes searching for any hidden emotions. You can tell me if something's bothering you, sweetheart. It's okay to feel a little sad or worried. Casey hesitated before finally blurting out.
It's just... I'm scared, Aunt Sally. Scared of the shadows in the dark.
Sally's brow furrowed in concern. Shadows? What do you mean, Casey? Casey glanced around the kitchen as if expecting the shadows to leap out at her.
I see them when I'm alone, especially at night. They whisper things. Scary things. I don't like it.
Sally's heart sank and she gently took Casey's hand in hers. Sweetheart, shadows can't hurt you. They're just tricks of the light, but I promise I'll make sure you're not scared. We can leave a nightlight on and I'll be here if you need anything, okay? Casey nodded, but her eyes still held a flicker of fear.
Can we sleep with the bedroom door open tonight, Aunt Sally? Just a little bit.
Sally smiled, understanding the gravity of Casey's request. Of course, darling. We'll keep the door open. I'll be right across the hall. No shadows will dare bother us. As the day turned into evening, the aroma of freshly baked cookies enveloped the house. Casey's infectious laughter echoed through the halls, momentarily pushing the shadows to the periphery. The trio settled in the living room, a plate of warm cookies between them. The flickering flames of the fireplace cast a warm glow, creating a sense of security that eased Casey's apprehension. Emma, seated on the couch with a cup of tea, observed the scene with a contented smile. I'm glad you and Casey had such a wonderful day, Sally, Emma remarked. It's been a while since we had a family baking session. Sally nodded, a twinge of nostalgia in her eyes. Yes, it's been nice. Cassie is a joy to be around, and these cookies are top-notch, if I do say so myself. Casey, munching on a cookie, chimed in with a mouthful.
Aunt Sally's the best at baking, Mum. Dad is going to love these.
Emma chuckled. I'm sure he will. And speaking of Dad, it's time for your bedtime, sweethearts. Aunt Sally and I will clean up here. You go brush your teeth and get ready for bed. Casey nodded, reluctantly leaving the warmth of the living room. As she disappeared down the hallway, Sally turned to Emma with a furrowed brow. Did Casey mention the shadows to you before? Sally asked in a hushed tone. Emma shook her head. No, this is the first time she said anything about it. I knew she missed Joe, but I had no idea it was manifesting in her dreams or imagination. Sally sighed, her gaze fixed on the flickering flames. Maybe it's just a phase. Kids have wild imaginations and the dark can be a bit scary. We'll keep an eye on her, make sure she feels safe. Unknown to the adults, Casey, eavesdropping from the hallway, clutched her stuffed bunny tightly. The shadows whispered to her, their voices indistinct yet ominous. She hesitated, torn between the comfort of her parents and the chilling unknown lurking in the dark. As Emma and Sally cleaned up the remnants of their baking adventure, Casey stood in the front of the bathroom mirror, staring into her reflections. The shadows seemed to linger at the edges of her vision, elusive and foreboding.
Aunt Sally says shadows can't hurt me, Casey whispered to herself, trying to quell the rising fear within. I just need to be brave. With a deep breath, she turned off the bathroom light, leaving a crack in the door for the comforting glow of the living room. Yet as Casey nestled under her covers, the shadows stretched and whispered, weaving a tapestry of unease in the quiet room. The night had only just begun, and the unseen shadows held secrets that would unravel in the days to come. The quiet hum of the household settled as Casey drifted into a fitful sleep. Shadows played on the walls, casting eerie silhouettes that seemed to dance with the flickering light of the nightlight. In the living room, Emma and Sally, oblivious to the shadows encroaching on Casey's dreams, chatted softly as they finished tidying up. I appreciate you being here, Sally. It's so reassuring to know Casey has someone familiar around while Joe is away, Emma confessed, glancing over at Sally. Sally smiled warmly. Of course, Emma. Casey's like a second daughter to me. I love being here for her, and you too, of course. Emma sighed, her gaze drifting towards the hallway where Casey's bedroom door stood slightly ajar. I just hope she can shake off whatever fears she has. She seemed genuinely scared of the shadows. Sally frowned, concern etching lines on her face. Oh, it's probably just a phase, like we said. Kids have vivid imaginations. We'll keep an eye on her. Make sure she feels safe. Maybe it's just the absence of Joe that's unsettling her. Emma nodded, still uneasy. I suppose you're right. I just want her to be happy and not feel scared when she's at home. Meanwhile, Casey lay in her bed, surrounded by the gentle glow of the nightlight. The shadows seemed to grow darker, and the whispers intensified. She pulled the covers tighter around herself, trying to drown out the unsettling voices that seemed to seep into her thoughts. Aunt Sally said they can't hurt me. They're just shadows, Casey whispered to herself, a mantra to ward off the encroaching fear. In the living room, Emma and Sally settled on the couch, sipping tea in the subdued light. The clock on the wall ticked away, marking the passing minutes. Sally's thoughts, however, were elsewhere, a hint of worry furrowing her brow. Aunt Sally, do you think Casey's okay? Emma asked, her eyes reflecting a mix of concern and maternal love. Sally hesitated before responding, her voice gentle. Kids go through phases, Emma. Casey's probably just missing her dad, and that's manifesting in these fears. We'll keep a close eye on her and make sure she feels secure. It will pass. Emma sighed, resting her tea on the coffee table. I hope so. I just hate seeing her scared like this. As the night deepened, Emma decided to check on Casey one last time before retiring to her room. The hallway was dimly lit, and a hushed tension hung in the air. She pushed open Casey's bedroom door and found her daughter curled up, eyes wide open. Hey, sweetheart, trouble sleeping? Emma asked, sitting on the edge of Casey's bed. Casey nodded, her voice a timid whisper. The shadows, Mum, they won't go away. Aunt Sally said they can't hurt me, but I'm still scared. Emma stroked Casey's hair, a soothing gesture. I understand, darling, but remember, you're surrounded by people who love you. The shadows can't hurt you, and Aunt Sally and I are just across the hall if you need anything. Casey clung to her mother, seeking solace. Can I sleep in your bed tonight, Mum? Just until Dad comes back. Emma smiled, lifting Casey into her arms. Of course, sweetheart. You're always welcome in our bed. Now let's go get you tucked in. As Casey settled into her parents' bed, the comforting scent of familiarity enveloped her. Emma sat beside her, gently rubbing her back until the rhythmic rise and fall of her breath signalled sleep. The shadows seemed to retreat, leaving behind a peaceful quiet in the room. In the living room, Sally sat alone, a contemplative expression on her face. The clock ticked on echoing in the silence. A soft sigh escaped her lips as she glanced toward the hallway, where Emma and Casey found comfort in each other's presence. The following morning brought a renewed sense of optimism to the Miller household. The sun peeked through the curtains, casting a warm glow that dispelled the lingering shadows of the night. Emma, with Casey in tow, entered the kitchen to find Sally already preparing breakfast.
"Morning, sleepyheads! I thought we could have a big breakfast to start the day right."
Sally greeted them with a cheerful smile. Casey, her eyes still bearing traces of the night's fear, managed a small smile.
"Thanks, Aunt Sally. Oh, can we have pancakes?"
Sally winked at her.
"Pancakes it is with extra syrup. Anything for my favourite little chef."
As the aroma of pancakes wafted through the air, the atmosphere in the kitchen lightened. Emma watched Casey with a mix of love and concern, silently hoping that the previous night's shadow would remain a fleeting memory. Over breakfast, Sally engaged Casey in animated conversations, doing her best to distract the young girl from the haunting thoughts of the night before. Emma, appreciative of Sally's efforts, couldn't shake a lingering sense of unease.
"Mum, do you think Dad will bring me a superhero action figure like he promised?"
Casey asked between bites of pancake. Emma smiled, ruffling Casey's hair. "Oh, I'm sure he will, sweetheart. He always keeps his promises, and when he comes back, we'll have a little celebration with your favourite dinner and cake." Casey's eyes lit up to the mention of cake.
"Can it be chocolate with lots of frosting?"
Emma laughed. "Casey, whatever you want. Now finish up your breakfast. We have a big day ahead." As the morning unfolded, the Miller household buzzed with a sense of normalcy. Cassie, fueled by the anticipation of her dad's return, immersed herself in various activities, momentarily forgetting the shadows that had haunted her dreams. However, as the day wore on and evening approached, the shadows returned, subtle whispers that danced on the edges of Casey's consciousness. She couldn't shake off that feeling that something lurked just out of sight, waiting to reveal itself when the night fell once again. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched across the living room. Emma, unaware of Casey's lingering fear, suggested a movie night to lift their spirits. The trio settled on the couch, blankets in tow, as Emma scrolled through the streaming options.
"Oh, Mum, can we watch a superhero movie? I want to be ready for when Dad brings my action figure,"
Cassie requested with enthusiasm. Emma chuckled. "Sure thing, sweetheart. Superheroes it is." As the movie played, Sally's mind wandered to the previous night's conversation. She observed Casey's occasional glances towards the shadows, a hint of unease in the young girl's eyes. Sally exchanged a knowing look with Emma, silently acknowledging the delicate balance between comforting Casey and understanding the source of her fear. As the movie reached its climax, the room plunged into darkness, the screen the only source of illumination. Casey tensed, her eyes fixated on the shadows that seemed to twist and writhe in the corners of the room. The whispers returned, subtle but insistent, echoing in Casey's ears.
"Aunt Sally, can we turn on the lights?"
Cassie's voice trembled with a vulnerability that tugged at Sally's heart. Sally glanced at Emma, who nodded in silent agreement. "Of course, Casey. Let's turn on all the lights. No more shadows tonight." As the room bathed in the warm glow of multiple lamps, Casey visibly relaxed. Emma exchanged a concerned glance with Sally, silently acknowledging the need to address Casey's fears. After the movie, as Casey drifted off to sleep in her parents' bed, once again, Sally and Emma sat in the dimly lit living room, their expressions mirroring a shared concern. "Emma, do you think we should talk to Casey about what's bothering her?" Sally broached the subject cautiously. Emma sighed, her gaze fixed on the shadows that clung to the corners of the room. "I don't want to overwhelm her, but it's clear something is bothering her. Maybe we can gently ask if there's anything she wants to share." Sally nodded. "I'll keep an eye on her tonight. If she mentions anything, we can approach it delicately. I just want her to feel safe and loved." The night wore on, and the living room became a haven of muted conversation and shared concern. In the shadows, however, unseen forces continued their dance, leaving a lingering sense of unease that would shape the events to come. The following day dawned with a deceptive calmness in Beaufort. Casey, with her radiant smile and infectious laughter, seemed to have pushed the shadows to the recesses of her mind. The promise of her father's return hung in the air, creating an atmosphere of excitement that momentarily overshadowed the recent nighttime fears. Sally and Emma, however, exchanged meaningful glances, a silent understanding passing between them. As the day unfolded, they approached Casey with a delicate inquiry, attempting to unravel the source of her unease without overwhelming her fragile state.
"Casey, sweetheart, we've noticed that you seem a bit scared at night. Is there something on your mind that you want to talk about?" Emma gently broached the subject as they sat in the living room.
Casey hesitated, her gaze fixed on the patterns of the rug beneath her feet.
I don't know. The shadows just scare me, Mum.
Sally, ever the comforting presence, joined in. "It's okay to feel scared, Casey. We all have things that bother us sometimes. Can you tell us what the shadows say or why they scare you?"
Casey bit her lip, struggling to find the words. "I don't know. They just whisper things like secrets. Sometimes they make me feel like someone is watching me."
Emma exchanged a worried glance with Sally, her maternal instincts on high alert. "Sweethearts, you know we're always here for you. The shadows can't hurt you, and Aunt Sally and I are just across the hall if you need anything. But if there's something specific that's bothering you, we want to help." Casey sighed, the weight of her fears evident in her eyes.
"I'm scared that Dad won't come back, that something bad will happen to him and the shadows know it."
A pang of sorrow echoed through Emma's heart as she reached out to hold Casey's hand. "Oh, darling, your dad will come back. He loves you more than anything in the world, and he's just away for work. He'll be back before you know it." Sally added, "And in the meantime, we'll make sure you feel safe and loved. How about we keep a nightlight on, and you can choose a favourite stuffed animal or toy to sleep with? That way the shadows won't stand a chance." Casey nodded, a glimmer of hope returning to her eyes.
"Okay, Aunt Sally, can we do that tonight?"
"Absolutely," Sally affirmed, "and if you ever feel scared, you can wake me up. I'll be right across the hall." The remainder of the day passed in a blend of comforting routines and attempts to distract Casey from her fears. As evening approached, Emma and Sally prepared for another night, this time armed with a strategy to face the shadows that haunted Casey's dreams. Night descended on Beaufort, and the Miller household embraced their modified bedtime routine. Casey, tucked into her bed with a nightlight, casting a gentle glow, clutched a stuffed bunny tightly. Sally, seated in the living room, kept a watchful eye on the shadows that seemed to dance in the corners, the whispers of secrets lingering in the air. In the living room, Emma and Sally shared a quiet conversation, their voices barely above a whisper. "Do you think it's just the absence of Joe that's causing this?" Emma asked, her concern etched in every line of her face. Sally sighed, her gaze fixed on the hallway leading to Casey's room. "It's possible. Kids often have a hard time with separations. There's something else, Emma. Casey's fear goes beyond the normal anxieties of a child missing her parent. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something more." Emma furrowed her brow, a knot of worry forming in her stomach. "What do you mean, Sally? Do you think something happened that she's not telling us?" Sally hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Listen, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but the way Casey talks about the shadows, it's almost like she believes they know something she doesn't. Maybe it's just a vivid imagination, but I can't shake the feeling that there's more to it." As the night wore on, Casey's room remained bathed in the soft glow of the nightlight. Sally, stationed in the living room, occasionally peeked into the hallway, reassuring herself that Casey was safe and asleep. In the quiet hours of the night, as the shadows deepened and the world outside slumbered, a subtle change occurred. Casey, usually a restless sleeper, stirred in her bed, her eyes fluttering open. The shadows seemed to arrive with a newfound intensity, their whispers growing more insistent. "Aunt Sally!" Cassie called out in a hushed voice, her small figure barely visible in the dim room. Sally, alert and attentive, swiftly entered Casey's room. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Are the shadows bothering you again?" Cassie nodded, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and curiosity.
"Oh, they're saying something, Aunt Sally. Something about Dad. I'm scared."
Sally almost let out a chuckle, but she maintained a composed exterior. "Let's turn on more lights, okay? And you can tell me what the shadows are saying. We'll face this together." As Sally switched on additional lights, casting a warm glow across the room, Casey hesitated before finally whispering,
"They say Dad does not love me, that something bad will happen to him and he won't come back to me."
Sally knelt beside Casey's bed, her voice gentle yet determined. "Sweetheart, your dad is safe. He's just away for work and he'll be back soon. The shadows are just playing tricks on you. We won't let anything happen to your dad, okay? Now, let's try to get some sleep. Tomorrow's a new day and we'll face it together." Casey nodded, clutching her stuffed bunny tightly. Sally stayed by her side until the rhythmic rise and fall of Casey's breath signaled that she had drifted back into a restless sleep. As Sally returned to the living room, a heaviness settled in the air. Emma, her eyes reflecting the shared concern, joined Sally on the couch. "What do you make of all this, Sally?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sally sighed, her gaze fixed on the hallway. "Oh, I wish I had answers, Emma. Casey's fear goes beyond a child's normal anxieties. It's like she believes the shadows are trying to tell her something about Joe. I can't shake the feeling there's more to it than just a vivid imagination." Emma's brow furrowed in worry. "Do you think we should talk to Casey about this, or should we wait for Joe to come back? I don't want to scare her more. I'll tell Joe everything." Sally deliberated for a moment before responding. "Let's wait a bit longer. Casey is already scared, and talking about it might make things worse. I'll keep a close eye on her, and we'll figure out the best approach when Joe returns. In the meantime, let's focus on making Casey feel safe and loved." As the night wore on, the living room became a haven of subdued conversation and shared concern. In the shadows, however, unsettling forces continued their dance, leaving a lingering sense of unease that would shape the events to come. The secrets whispered by the shadows remained elusive, tantalizingly out of reach, as the Miller household grappled with the enigma that wrapped itself around Casey's dreams. In the quiet hours of the night, while Casey slept with fragile peace, unseen forces began to weave a tapestry of deception within the walls of the Miller household. Sally, a comforting figure by day, now moved in the shadows, manipulating perceptions and sowing seeds of doubt. The following morning dawned with an air of uncertainty. Casey, blissfully unaware of the invisible currents shaping her world, joined Emma and Sally for a subdued breakfast. The night's whispers lingered like a haunting melody, casting a pall over the normally cheerful atmosphere. Emma, a concerned furrow marring her brow, glanced at Sally. "Do you think we should talk to Casey about what happened last night? I hate to see her so scared." Sally, masking her true intentions behind a facade of concern, nodded solemnly. "I think it might be a good idea, Emma. Casey needs to express her feelings, and talking about it could be cathartic for her. Maybe she can help us understand why she's so frightened." The trio settled into the living room after breakfast, and Emma turned her gaze towards Casey. "Sweetheart, do you want to talk about last night, about the shadows and what they were saying?" Casey hesitated, her eyes darting between her mother and Sally.
"I don't know, Mum. They were just saying scary things about Dad, and it felt real."
Sally interjected with a reassuring smile. "Casey, it's okay to feel scared, but sometimes our mind plays tricks on us, especially when we're missing someone we love. Maybe talking about it will make you feel better." Encouraged by Sally's gentle prodding, Casey began to open up.
"I just want Dad to come back, and the shadows make me think he doesn't love me. I don't want anything bad to happen to him."
Emma hugged Casey close, her heart aching at her daughter's vulnerability. "Oh, sweetheart, your dad is safe. He's just away for work. He loves you dearly, and he'll be back soon. You know, sometimes our minds exaggerate our fears, especially at night. We'll leave the lights on, and Aunt Sally and I are here to keep you company." Sally added, "And maybe tonight we can try a special bedtime routine to chase away the shadows? What do you think? Maybe a bedtime story or a favourite lullaby?" Casey nodded, a faint smile breaking through her apprehension.
"That sounds nice, Aunt Sally. Oh, can we read a story about superheroes?"
Sally chuckled. "Casey, we'll make it a superhero night. Now, why don't you go play for a bit and we'll get ready for tonight?" As Casey skipped off to her room, Sally turned to Emma with a reassuring smile. See, Emma, it's just a child's imagination. We'll keep her busy and engaged, and those fears will fade away. Emma, though appreciative of Sally's efforts, couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that there was more to Casey's fears than a simple, vivid imagination. I hope you're right, Sally. I just hate to see her so scared. Sally nodded empathetically. I do too, Emma. We'll get through this together. Casey is a resilient little girl. With a bit of extra care, she'll be back to her usual self in no time. As the day unfolded, Sally kept a watchful eye on Casey, guiding her through various activities and distractions. The impending superhero-themed bedtime story became a beacon of anticipation for Casey, momentarily eclipsing the shadows that lurked at the edges of her consciousness, while Sally played the role of the supportive aunt. A subtle undercurrent of manipulation ran through her actions. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma, Casey, and Sally gathered in the living room for the promised bedtime story. Sally, holding a colourful storybook featuring caped crusaders, began to spin a tale of bravery, resilience, and triumph of good over evil. Casey, enraptured by the narrative, clung to every word, her imagination weaving a world where heroes faced down shadows and emerged victorious. The bedtime routine continued, the lights left on and familiar toys placed strategically to ward off the elusive shadows. As Sally bid Casey good night, she lingered in the doorway, exchanging a knowing look with Emma. I think tonight went well, Sally whispered to Emma. Casey seems more at ease, don't you think? Emma nodded, albeit with a lingering trace of uncertainty. Yes, she does. I just hope this isn't a recurring issue. Joe will be back soon and things will go back to normal. Sally smiled reassuringly. Exactly, Emma. We'll get through this and Casey will be back to her cheerful self when her dad returns. In the quiet of the night, as the Miller household settled into sleep, Sally's mind worked tirelessly in the shadows. The seeds of doubt planted in Emma's mind began to take root, growing into a narrative that painted Casey as a disturbed child grappling with imaginary demons. As the days passed, Sally carefully cultivated this narrative, subtly emphasizing Casey's nightmare fears and emphasizing her vivid imagination. She suggested to Emma that perhaps a professional opinion might be beneficial. A child psychologist, she proposed, to help Casey navigate her anxieties. Emma, ever the concerned mother, considered Sally's suggestion with a mix of apprehension and a desire to help her daughter. The idea of seeking professional advice took root, casting a new shadow over the household. Meanwhile, Joe, still on his business trip, grew increasingly anxious about Casey's well-being. One evening during a video call, Joe couldn't shake the unease that crept into their conversation. "Is everything okay back home?" he asked, his voice tinged with concern. Emma hesitated, glancing at Sally before responding. Casey has been having some trouble at night, Joe. She's been scared of shadows and having vivid dreams. Aunt Sally suggested that maybe talking to a child psychologist could help her work through her anxieties. Joe's brow furrowed, worry etched on his face. Anxieties? What's been happening exactly? Casey never had these issues before. Sally, seizing the opportunity, chimed in. It's not uncommon for children to develop fears, especially when a parent is away. We just want to make sure Casey has the support she needs. A professional might be able to help her understand and cope with her emotions. Joe sighed, a heavy weight settling in his chest, and said firmly, "Oh, I wish I was there to help her through this. But till the time I'm not back, do not take Casey to any doctor or place without my information." Unknown to Joe, the threads of deception tightened their grip, entwining Casey's reality with a carefully crafted narrative. The decision to seek professional help cast a looming shadow over the Mill household, and Sally, hidden behind a mask of concern, continued to shape the narrative to her advantage. As Casey faced the prospect of therapy, the shadows whispered their secrets unseen and unheard. The suspense of the true culprit lingered, shrouded in a veil of deception that would slowly unravel as the story unfolded. The Miller household became a tapestry of routines, anxiety, and a persistent sense of unease. Casey's therapy sessions had commenced, guided by Dr. Bruce, a child psychology recommended by Aunt Sally. The soft-spoken therapist's office became a temporary haven where Casey's fears and dreams spilled into the open. In the dimly lit room adorned with colourful artwork and plush toys, Casey sat across from Dr. Brew. The atmosphere was calm, yet an undercurrent of tension pulsed through the air. Sally, ever present as Casey's support, hovered on the periphery, her watchful gaze on the unfolding sessions. Dr. Brew, a gentle woman with a kind demeanour, began the session with a warm smile. "Hello, Casey. My name is Dr. Brew. Your mum and Aunt Sally have told me a bit about what's happening at night. I'm here to help you understand and work through your feelings. How are you feeling today?" Casey, clutching a stuffed bunny, looked up with wide eyes.
"I'm okay, I guess, but the shadows scare me and I don't want anything bad to happen to my dad."
Dr. Brew nodded empathetically. "It's completely normal to feel scared, especially when someone you love is away. Can you tell me more about the shadows and what they say to you?" As Casey began to share her fears, Sally observed the session with an air of calculated concern. Dr. Brew, unaware of the intricacies at play, delved into Casey's psyche to provide genuine help. However, beneath the surface, Sally's subtle manipulation shaped the narrative, emphasizing Casey's vulnerability and casting shadows on her mental well-being. In the living room, Emma anxiously waited for the therapy session to conclude. She trusted Dr. Brew to guide Casey through her anxieties, but a lingering doubt clawed at the edges of her mind. The shadows Sally planted whispered tales of a disturbed child, and Emma found herself caught between a desire to help her daughter and an unsettling sense of uncertainty. The therapy sessions continued, each one delving deeper into Casey's fears and anxieties. Dr. Brew, ever the patient listener, attempted to unravel the threads of Casey's imagination. Meanwhile, Sally carefully moulded the narrative, subtly suggesting underlying issues that could be contributing to Casey's struggles. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sally joined Emma in the living room. The weight of unspoken concerns hung in the air. "Do you think the therapy is helping, Sally?" Emma asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Sally nodded solemnly. "I believe it's a step in the right direction. Emma, Dr. Brew's experienced and she's helping Casey express her feelings. It might take some time, but I'm confident we'll see progress." Yet as Sally spoke words of reassurance, a hidden agenda lurked behind her facade. The shadows of deception danced in her eyes, the true motives shrouded in secrecy. In the therapy sessions, Casey began to explore her emotions with a vulnerability that stirred empathy in Dr. Brew. The shadows, once terrifying spectres, transformed into symbolic representations of Casey's fears and insecurities. The therapist, dedicated to her craft, worked diligently to unravel the web of emotions entwined within Casey's young mind. Unbeknownst to Casey, her father's worry deepened with each passing day. Joe, miles away on his business trip, remained unaware of the therapy sessions and the underlying currents shaping Casey's narrative. The calls home provided only glimpses into the life he longed to be a part of. The anticipation that lingered within the Miller household was palpable as Joe orchestrated a surprise return. The quiet street of Meadowbrook, accustomed to the ordinary rhythms of daily life, now hosted a moment of extraordinary significance. The front door creaked open, revealing Joe's silhouette as he stepped into the entryway. His return, unannounced and unexpected, cast a ripple through the household. Emma, Casey, and even Aunt Sally, who had played her part in a malevolent game, found themselves caught off guard. "Casey! Emma!" Joe called out with a tone that carried both warmth and urgency. His voice echoed through the halls, triggering a cascade of footsteps as mother and daughter rushed to greet him. As the trio reunited in the living room, joy and surprise painted Casey's face.
"Dad, you're back! I didn't expect you until next week."
A conspiratorial smile played on Joe's lips as he gathered his family into a tight embrace. "I couldn't wait any longer. I missed you both too much." The reunion, however, was underscored by an unspoken tension. The shadows of deception lingered, waiting to be dispelled by the revelation Joe had carefully orchestrated. As the family settled into the familiar surroundings, Aunt Sally observed the scene with an air of feigned enthusiasm. "Joe, what a pleasant surprise! How was your trip?" Joe's gaze shifted towards Sally, his expression a subtle blend of warmth and discernment. "It was productive, Sally, but I'm eager to catch up on everything that's happened here." As casual conversations unfolded, The atmosphere, once charged with joy, now felt like a stage set for revelation long overdue. After a family dinner that carried the veneer of normalcy, Joe steered the conversation toward Casey's recent experiences.
Casey, sweetheart, I heard there have been some challenges while I've been away. Mind filling me in?
Casey hesitated, glancing towards Emma before speaking.
It's just some nightmares, Dad. Nothing to worry about.
Joe's eyes, perceptive and unwavering, met Casey's.
I know you, Casey. You've always been my brave girl. Tell me the truth.
The room fell into a thoughtful silence as Casey, her defences softened by her father's gaze, began to share the fears that had haunted her nights, the shadows, the whispers, the inexplicable anxieties that had taken root in her young mind. Joe listened intently, his heart heavy with concern. As Casey spoke, his eyes darted towards Aunt Sally, who maintained a facade of sympathy. The realization struck him. The time for deception had come to an end.
Thank you for sharing, Casey, Joe said, his voice a mixture of reassurance and determination. We'll get through this together as a family.
With Casey excused to her room, Emma turned to Joe with a look of both gratitude and apprehension. I didn't want to burden you, Joe. We thought we could handle it here. Joe's expression softened as he placed a reassuring hand on Emma's shoulder.
We're a team, Emma. We face challenges together now. I need to talk to Aunt Sally. Alone.
As Casey retreated to her room, the atmosphere in the living room shifted. The unspoken tension between Joe and Aunt Sally became palpable. Sally, feigning innocence, awaited the conversation that would inevitably expose the malevolence she had sown. Once alone, Joe fixed his gaze on Sally, his eyes probing beneath the surface of her carefully crafted facade.
Sally, we need to talk about Casey, about everything that's been happening.
Sally, her eyes reflecting a practised innocence, responded with a feigned concern. Joe, I've been doing my best here to help Casey. She's been going through a tough time. We thought it best to handle it locally. Joe, however, was not swayed by the performance.
Casey's fears, the therapy, the secrets. There's more to the story than meets the eye, and I need the truth, Sally.
Aunt Sally's composure wavered, but she maintained her facade. Joe, I've only been doing what I thought was best for Casey. We didn't want to worry you during your trip. Joe's eyes, stern and unyielding, bore into Sally's.
I appreciate your concern, Sally, but I've been watching. I've seen everything through the hidden camera I set up before leaving.
A flicker of panic passed through Sally's eyes, her carefully constructed lies unravelling before her.
Hidden camera?
Joe, what are you talking about? Joe, his patience tested and his fatherly instincts aflame, confronted Sally with the truth.
I saw the nighttime visits, Sally. I saw you hovering over Casey, whispering in the dark. What were you doing in her room?
Sally's expression shifted from feigned innocence to a subtle acknowledgement of the exposed truth. Joe, it's not what you think. I was only trying to help Casey through her nightmares. I didn't want to disturb you with unnecessary worries. Joe, undeterred by Sally's attempt to deflect, pressed further.
Help her. The therapy, the hidden camera, the lies. How does any of this help Casey? What were you doing in her room, Sally?
As Sally hesitated, the room seemed to close in on her. The weight of the hidden camera's revelations bore down, exposing the malevolence that had thrived in the shadows. Joe, his voice unwavering, continued to unravel the deceit.
I've seen the way you manipulated Casey, Sally. I've seen the lies and the fear you've sown. Why? What's your motive in all of this?
Aunt Sally, cornered by the undeniable truth, shifted from feigned innocence to a defensive stance. You don't understand, Joe. I was only trying to protect Casey. There are things you don't know. Joe's eyes narrowed, his patience wearing thin.
Protect her? The footage tells a different story, Sally. What were you doing in her room? Why the lies, the therapy sessions, the hidden agenda?
Sally, her gaze shifting between the accusing pair, hesitated before offering a glimpse into her motivations.
I lost my husband to an accident years ago, and I couldn't bear to see Casey suffer the way I did. I thought I could spare her the pain by taking matters into my own hands.
Joe's anger tempered with a tinge of understanding.
You went about it the wrong way, Sally.
Casey deserved honesty, not a web of lies and deception. We trusted you, and you betrayed that trust.
As the confrontation unfolded, Casey, unaware of the storm that raged outside her room, sensed a shift in the air. The shadows that had haunted her night seemed to dissipate, replaced by a newfound clarity that mirrored the truth exposed by the hidden camera. The revelation sparked a cascade of emotions within the Miller household. Anger, betrayal, and the sting of shattered trust. Casey, the unwitting centre of the storm, remained shielded from the unfolding drama as her parents navigated the aftermath of a shocking revelation. As Joe gathered his family in the living room, the air pulsated with a mix of tension and anticipation. Casey, Emma, and even Aunt Sally, whose malevolence had been laid bare, awaited an explanation for the seemingly deliberate orchestration of events. Joe, his gaze unwavering, began to unravel the logic behind his decisions.
I want to address the questions you all must have. Why the hidden camera? Why the delay in my return? And why I chose to reveal the truth in person?
He directed his attention towards Casey, whose eyes held a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty.
Casey, sweetheart, I set up the hidden camera because I sensed something wasn't right. As your father, my primary concern is your safety and well-being. When your nightmares began, I wanted to understand what was causing them.
Emma nodded, a glimmer of understanding in her eyes. So you were watching over us even when you were away? Joe smiled. His love for his daughter was evident in his eyes.
Exactly, Casey. I wanted to make sure you were safe, and I needed to understand the source of your fears. That's why I set up the hidden camera in your room.
Turning his attention to Emma, Joe continued to lay bare the rationale behind his decisions.
Emma, I knew Aunt Sally was involved in Casey's therapy, and I trusted her judgment. However, as the nights passed, my concern grew. I needed to see what was happening when the lights went out.
Emma, her eyes reflecting a mix of gratitude and understanding, nodded in acknowledgement. You were looking out for us, even from a distance.
Yes, Emma. But I also knew that simply watching wasn't enough. I needed to confront Sally and expose the truth in person, Joe explained, his gaze now fixed on Sally, who sat in the corner of the room, a witness to the unravelling of her malevolence. Aunt Sally, Joe addressed her with a stern look, I set up the hidden cameras because I couldn't trust the information I was receiving. I needed concrete evidence of what was happening in my absence, and as for the delay in my return, I wanted to ensure that I had all the facts before confronting you.
Sally, her composure shattered by the weight of the revealed truth, listened with a sense of resignation. Joe continued.
Calling wouldn't have sufficed. I needed to be there, in person, to face the reality and protect my family. Casey, Emma, I didn't want to drop this bombshell over a call. I wanted to be here for you, to answer your questions, and to ensure that we face this together, as a family.
As the truth spilled forth, Sally's facade of empathy crumbled, revealing a malevolence that had lurked in the shadows of the Miller household. Joe and Emma, their eyes ablaze with a mix of anger and disbelief, demanded answers that would expose the depths of Sally's deceptions.
Why, Sally? Why would you manipulate us like this?
Emma's voice quivered with a mixture of rage and hurt. Sally, cornered by the undeniable evidence and the fury in Emma's eyes, hesitated before the malevolent truth escaped her lips.
I wanted revenge.
Sally, backed into a corner, revealed a glimpse of the malevolence that had lurked beneath the surface.
I had to do it, Joe. I had to make you pay for what you did to my husband. Casey was the key, the pawn in my plan for revenge.
Emma's brow furrowed, her mind struggling to comprehend the revelation.
Revenge? Revenge for what?
Sally, a twisted smile playing on her lips, revealed a tale of betrayal that unfurled like a dark tapestry. Your husband, Joe, was once my husband's business partner. They built a successful company together, but when my husband passed away in that accident, Joe took it all. The business, the wealth, everything that rightfully belonged to my husband and me. Emma, her eyes widening with shock, shook her head in disbelief.
That's not true, Sally. Joe would never do something like that. He's an honourable man.
Sally's laughter, cold and devoid of empathy, echoed through the room. Oh, Emma, you've been living in a fantasy. Joe orchestrated that accident to get rid of my husband and take everything for himself. I spent years planning my revenge, and Casey was the key. I wanted to break your family just like Joe broke mine. Joe, his anger tempered by a growing sense of incredulity, retorted,
You're fabricating lies, Sally. I would never do something so heinous. Your accusations are baseless.
Sally, undeterred by Joe's protestations, continued her malevolent tale. I started by planting the seeds of doubt in Casey's mind, making her believe her father was in danger. Then, I introduced therapy, knowing it would create a rift between you and Emma. A way to make you paranoid, to tear your family apart. Emma, her eyes narrowing with a mix of fury and disbelief, spat out, You've been playing with our lives, with Casey's emotions, all because of some twisted vendetta? You're evil, Sally. Sally's smile widened, the malevolence in her eyes unmasked. Evil? No, Emma. I'm simply reclaiming what was rightfully mine. Joe stole my husband's legacy, and I wanted him to suffer. Casey was the pawn in my grand plan to bring about your downfall. Joe, his mind reeling from the shocking revelation, struggled to find words. This is madness, Sally. I never did anything to harm your husband, and I certainly wouldn't involve Casey in some vengeful plot. Sally, revelling in the chaos she had sown, chuckled darkly. You can deny it all you want, Joe, but the truth has a way of revealing itself. Casey's therapy, the Flair, I orchestrated it all, and now your precious family is crumbling just as mine did. Amid the betrayal, a sense of clarity pierced through the fog of deception. The Miller family, shaken to its core, faced a betrayal that transcended the bounds of reason. Casey, still shielded from the unfolding drama, remained an unwitting pawn in Sally's malevolent game. Emma, her anger transforming into resolute determination, spoke with unwavering conviction. We won't let you destroy our family, Sally. Whatever twisted vendetta you have, it ends now. Joe, fueled by a father's protective instincts, echoed Emma's sentiment. You've crossed a line, Sally. We will expose your lies and ensure you face the consequences of what you've done. Sally, unrepentant and entrenched in her bitterness, sneered at the defiant couple. Expose me? Who will believe you? I've woven a web of deceit that will unravel your lives, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. As Sally revelled in her perceived triumph, the Miller household became a battleground of emotions. Casey, stirred from her slumber by the tension in the air, entered the room, her eyes wide with innocence. The decision to set up a hidden camera and delay his return, a move that seemed inconspicuous at first, bore the weight of calculated reasoning. Joe Miller, the patriarch determined to protect his family, had strategized the sequence of events with a meticulous understanding of the malevolence that lurked in the shadows. Casey, her eyes glistening with a mix of relief and gratitude, spoke up. I'm glad you're back, Dad. I was so scared and didn't know who to trust. Joe embraced Casey, his protective instincts guiding him. I'm here now, sweetheart. We're going to get through this together, and Sally... He turned his gaze toward the now exposed malevolence. Your vendetta ends here. The truth is out, and the consequences will follow. The air in the living room hung heavy with the weight of revelations, as Emma, fueled by a mother's protective instinct, stepped forward to confront Sally. The room seemed to pulse with tension as Emma's gaze bore into Sally's, a silent testament to the betrayal that had unfolded under the same roof. Emma's voice, steady but laced with a fiery determination, cut through the charged atmosphere. Sally, I trusted you. Casey trusted you. How could you do this to us? How could you hurt our daughter? A pause lingered in the room, the weight of Emma's words sinking in. Casey, thus standing by her mother's side, observed the confrontation with a mix of confusion and hurt. Emma, fueled by her mother's anger and the protectiveness born from unconditional love, pressed on. I don't know what twisted vendetta you've concocted in your mind, but using Casey to get back at us is unforgivable. Casey is a child. You've manipulated her and instilled fear in her heart. For what, Sally? Revenge? Jealousy? Sally, unable to maintain her facade of innocence, shifted uncomfortably. You don't understand, Emma. You don't know what it's like to lose everything. Emma's eyes flashed with empathy, but it did little to soften her resolve. I may not know your pain, Sally, but that doesn't excuse what you've done. Casey is not a pawn in some sick game of revenge. She's our daughter. You've betrayed her trust. The room, once a sanctuary for family unity, became a battleground for the clash of emotions. Casey, sensing the intensity of the confrontation, clung to her mother's side, her eyes darting between Emma and Sally. Emma's voice, now tinged with a mix of sorrow and indignation, continued to echo through the room. You've not only betrayed us, Sally,
You've shattered Casey's sense of security. What kind of person preys on a child's vulnerability? You've crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. Sally confronted the consequences of her malevolence, attempted to deflect blame. I had to do something, Emma. You don't know what it's like to lose the person you love and watch everything slip away. Emma's gaze softened with a flicker of understanding, but her resolve remained unshaken. I can empathise with loss, Sally, but using Casey as a pawn in your vendetta is inexcusable. You had the chance to be family, to find support in each other, but you chose a path of deceit and manipulation. As Emma spoke, Casey clung to her mother's hand, a silent witness to the confrontation that unfolded. The sense of betrayal weighed heavily on the young girl's shoulders. Emma's tone, now edged with a stern determination, carried a message of accountability. You will face the consequences of your actions, Sally. Casey deserves better than to be used as a tool for revenge. We'll protect our family no matter the cost. Sally, her attempt at deflection thwarted, sat in silence as Emma's words reverberated through the room. The confrontation had laid bare the extent of the malevolence that had infiltrated their lives, and the consequences loomed on the horizon. As the family confronted the aftermath of the vicious storm, the logic behind Joe's decisions became clear. The hidden camera, the delayed return, and the in-person revelations were all strategic moves aimed at protecting his family and exposing the truth with an unwavering commitment to honesty and resilience. The living room, once shrouded in deception, now bore witness to the triumph of truth and the resilience of a family united in the face of adversity. The journey toward redemption continued, guided by the unwavering light of honesty, trust, and the enduring bonds that held the Miller family together. Joe's thoughtful plan, born out of her father's intuition and a deep love for his daughter, served as a testament to the lengths one would go to protect those they held dear. The hidden camera, though revealing a dark truth, also highlights the resilience of the family unit. As they navigated the path towards healing and redemption, the Millers embraced the unspoken truths that had come to light. The experience became a catalyst for deeper conversations, shared moments of vulnerability, and a renewed commitment to transparency and trust. The hidden camera, a silent witness to both shadows and light, faded into the background as the family focused on rebuilding. The journey, though marked by trials, ultimately reinforced the profound truth that love, trust, and vigilance could withstand the storms that sought to shake the foundations of family bonds. In the quiet moments that followed, as Casey nestled in her father's protective embrace and Emma found solace in the strength of their unity, the Millers realized that the hidden camera had served not just as a tool of revelation, but as a reminder that the love within a family could overcome even the darkest of shadows.
Mom? Dad? What's happening?
Casey's voice trembled with the uncertainty that clung to the atmosphere. Joe, a protective arm around Casey, spoke with her father's reassurance. It's okay, Casey. We're going to fix everything. Aunt Sally has done something very wrong, and we need to make it right. Casey, sensing the gravity of the situation, nodded solemnly.
I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to believe it. What do we do now?
Emma, her gaze unwavering, addressed her daughter with a sense of determination. We expose Sally's lies. We bring the truth to light, and we rebuild our family stronger than ever. No one can tear us apart. The Miller family faced a daunting task, to unravel the twisted web of lies Sally had woven and expose the truth that lay hidden beneath the surface. The revelation's shocking and malevolence set the stage for a battle against deceit. Casey, unwittingly thrust into the heart of the storm, became a beacon of hope for a family determined to emerge from the shadows stronger than before. The revelation of Sally's malevolence had plunged the Miller household into a tumultuous storm. But within the chaos, seeds of redemption and resilience began to sprout. The family, united against the web of lies that had ensnared them, embarked on a journey to expose the truth and confront the malevolent force that sought to tear them apart. With the evidence from the hidden camera in hand, Joe and Emma approached the authorities to expose Sally's deceit. The footage painted a damning picture of manipulation, lies, and a vendetta that went beyond the bounds of reason. As the legal proceedings unfolded, Sally found herself entangled in a web of consequences that she had never anticipated. The community, once swayed by Sally's carefully crafted facade, now witnessed the unravelling of her malevolence. Friends and neighbours, shocked by the revelations, rallied around the Millers, offering support and solidarity. The truth and powerful force began to dismantle the illusions Sally had woven. In the court of law, Sally faced the consequences of her actions. The evidence presented against her left little room for denial. The betrayal, not only to the Millers but also to the community at large, cast a shadow over her once respected reputation. As Sally confronted the reality of her impending fate, remorse flickered in her eyes. The twisted path of vengeance she had chosen had led her to the precipice of ruin. In the face of undeniable truth, she found herself stripped of the power and control she had so meticulously wielded. The court's judgment echoed with a sense of poetic justice. Sally, once the architect of deception, now faced the repercussions of her malevolence. Legal consequences aside, the community's judgment was a heavy burden to bear, an acknowledgement of the pain that she had inflicted upon those who had trusted her. The Millers, though scarred by the ordeal, found solace in the support of their community and the strength of their familial bonds. Casey, the unwitting victim turned beacon of hope, became a symbol of resilience and the triumph of truth over deception. As Sally's malevolent chapter reached its conclusion, the Miller family focused on healing the wounds inflicted by the ordeal. The shadows that had haunted their home began to dissipate, making way for a renewed sense of love and unity. With Sally's malevolence exposed, the Millers returned to the embrace of their community with heads held high. Friends and neighbours, once deceived by the cunning manipulations, extended their empathy and understanding. The journey to redemption had not only exposed a malevolent force, but had also strengthened the fabric of the Miller family and the bonds they shared with those around them. In the aftermath of the storm, the Millers decided to turn a new leaf and created lasting memories that would overshadow the darkness of the past. Together they embarked on family outings, celebrated milestones, and rekindled the laughter that had once echoed through the halls of their home. Casey, once haunted by the shadows of deception, embraced the warmth of her family's love. The therapy sessions, initially shrouded in a web of lies, took on a genuine purpose, a tool to help Casey express and navigate her emotions in a supportive environment. Dr. Brew, now aware of the truth, worked alongside the Millers to guide Casey towards healing and resilience. As the seasons changed, so did the Miller family. The once broken bonds had mended into a tapestry of love, trust, and shared experiences. Joe and Emma, strengthened by the trials they had faced together, emerged as pillars of support for one another and Casey. One sunny afternoon, the Millers gathered in their backyard for a joyous family barbecue. Laughter echoed and the aroma of grilled delicacies filled the air. Casey, her eyes sparkling with newfound joy, played with the family dog, the shadows of the past fading into distant memories. Amidst the laughter and shared moments, Joe raised a toast to the resilience of their family. To love, truth, and the strength that emerges from the darkest of storms. The clink of glasses resonated with a symbolic gesture, marking the triumph of the Miller family over adversity. Emma, her heart brimming with gratitude, looked at Joe with a smile that conveyed a depth of emotion words could not capture. In the spirit of renewal, the Millers decided to give back to the community that had stood by them during their darkest days. They organised events, supported local charities, and became beacons of inspirations for those facing their struggles. The Miller's story, once marred by the ill wishes of someone's jealousy, became a testament to the power of resilience, love, and the unwavering pursuit of truth. The shadows that had threatened to engulf their world were replaced by the brilliance of a future forged from the crucible of adversity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the Miller household, the family gathered on the porch to enjoy the serene evening. Casey, nestled between her parents, gazed up at the starlit sky with a sense of wonder. Joe looked at Emma and Casey with a profound sense of gratitude. We've weathered the storm and we're stronger than ever, he remarked, his voice carrying the weight of their shared journey. Emma, her eyes reflecting a mixture of joy and relief, replied, Our love and trust prevailed, Joe. We're a family, unbreakable. Casey, sensing the harmony that now defined their home, added with a wide smile,
"And Dad, you're my superhero. Even when you were far away, you kept us safe."
The Miller family, bound by love, trust, and the unwavering resolve to face whatever challenges came their way, looked towards a future brightened by the lessons learnt and the enduring strength of their familial ties.
"Everything feels so different now, but in a good way,"
Casey mused, her voice carrying the innocence of a child who had emerged from the shadows into the light. Joe ruffled Casey's hair, his eyes reflecting a mix of pride and love. "We've been through a lot, sweetheart, but we've come out stronger. Our family is unbreakable." Emma nodded in agreement, her gaze fixed on the twinkling stars above. "And no matter what challenges come our way, we'll face them together, with love, honesty, and the strength that comes from being a family." In that tranquil moment, the Millers embraced the beauty of their restored family, cherishing the lessons learnt from their harrowing journey. The tale of deceit and redemption had given way to a new chapter, one filled with the promise of a happily ever after forged in the crucible of adversity. The stars overhead bore witness to the resilience of the Miller family, a testament to the enduring power of love and the triumph of light over the shadows of the past.